Good afternoon and welcome to Wednesday's WeatherWord, September 22nd. Hope everything's going okay with you. Looking at the weather, the story is the cold air finishing its journey. It's in the last stretches. You can see the cold front there. As of this afternoon, as of today, you got the cold front. It's through Oklahoma, it's through Texas. It's now working more into the Gulf Coast, North Florida, Panhandle. And that's kind of the main story, is that finishes its progress. A lot of excited people by the cold air. On that front, you can see there's a low up near Erie, Pennsylvania, along the Great Lakes of the Northeast, kind of. That feature does offer some potential for a few thunderstorms today. There's kind of a clear slot that's developed ahead of it, and so there may be a few active thunderstorms in kind of far western Pennsylvania, far northeastern Ohio, northern West Virginia, kind of that area, Pittsburgh, Erie, kind of east of Cleveland, I think, just a bit, but because the factors are there, right, wrapping up just north of the low especially, the winds will be southeast and there'll be some heating, and so it looks like the factors are there for a bit of severe weather. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything crazy, but a few tornadoes possible, and we'll see. Maybe I'll be around later to talk about that for people in that area, or to look at that a little more, see what I can do with that. But I wouldn't be overly nervous if I'm in that area. It's not like looking like a widespread outbreak, but a few isolated storms may develop that may be worth watching in that area. But for the rest of the country, not a lot going on. A few areas of rain and thunderstorms along the front, but they're nothing in terms of risk or severe or flood threat particularly. Pretty reasonable. Mainly the story is that cold front. And you can see the very hint of the next system way up in the Pacific Northwest, north of that, up in Western Canada, working its way east. And so as we get into tonight, you can see that low does start its progression. It develops cold fronts a little better and starts working east. And so now it's up north of Montana. And so here it comes, the next one in the line. The train continues. Now, looking back to the east, the front has moved beyond the Appalachians. What's interesting is the low pressure itself is kind of being weird. It's kind of unique, put it that way. I mean, it's kind of something we don't see too often. It's actually retrograding. It's backing up to the west, the low pressure. And you know, you see that sometimes, but not usually when it's been accompanied by such a significant cold front. It's starting to occlude. That'll be temporary. It's a weird evolution. It happens. It's just, and it's not like it's concerning or anything like that. It's just something different where the low goes back to the west. Usually lows in the jet stream, significant lows that bring cold air, they progress east generally. Sometimes way up in northern Canada they'll wrap back around, but that's after they've completed kind of their whole process. This isn't so much that the cold air swept all the way around and wrapped it up. It's more like the low backed up, and so it kind of underran its cold front. It's weird, but it's interesting to me. It was just kind of like, what? This is different. So life will always surprise you. That you think you've seen it all, and then you see something new, and it's no big deal. It's just, hey, that's different. But that's really the stories, is those two systems. Going into tomorrow, the front's made it by Jacksonville by that point, and it's starting to nudge down into north central Florida. A lot of talk whether it'll make it here. It does look like the last bits of it are going to seep down here. Our moisture's going to drop just a little bit, so the winds will shift out of the kind of west, northwest. It doesn't look like it's really going to bring much cool air, but we may well see one of the coolest lows we've had in many months. You may notice the cool if you really look for it, but it won't be like, wow, it's so different, crisp fall air. No, nothing like that in Orlando and Tampa and places like that, but still, the signs things are changing. I mean, we had something a little bit a few weeks ago where a front made it about here, but this one's a little different. It had some real cool air up over Oklahoma. I saw 40s and stuff. It's like, okay, that's me. But I know a lot of people looking forward to that, and fair enough. But So it's more of a real cold front, but it's kind of ran out of steam, and that's what I was saying. It's finishing its progress. It is pushing off the eastern seaboard up further north. The nearer the low, the front usually progresses more actively still. Even as that low backs up, now it's up in Michigan. It's like, where are you going? You're supposed to carry on with the cold front. And that's kind of an indication that the front's continuing ahead, but it's working only on its own temperature gradient. And as that kind of runs out, there's no dynamic energy to kind of push it further east yet. You see there's that high pressure, I think it's still on the map by tomorrow, out in the Atlantic, and it really doesn't move a whole lot. It's kind of like you're not coming this far. In fact, it kind of builds because the low's retreating, so the high says, hey, I'm building in here. And so this front is pretty much out of gas at this point. It's going to be short-lived for most people. You can also see that cold front now working into the north central U.S., and it's a complex system. You'll see a pattern where the low kind of keeps reforming, reorganizing. It's not very consistent, and that's often a sign that the system doesn't have too much organization to it. It's kind of blips here and there, and as you go into Saturday, you can see, hopefully I spoke about Friday, I think I did. Well, maybe not. Friday is when the cold front clears the eastern seaboard, and that low gets up north of Michigan, and the next system's coming down into the east. But then on Saturday, you can see kind of those two cold fronts. The first one's not going anywhere. The second one's kind of coming in. It's running out of gas too. You can see it's starting to fade already. It really dissipates quickly and loses its punch. It looked like a decent system tomorrow or Friday, and then it just kind of runs in. You got like this weird, complicated, you got two fronts and a high in the middle, like a high pressure sandwich. The high pressure kind of ends up being what wins. The other things are all fading. The lows are all going up in the north, Hudson Bay, North Canada, and wrapping together the different systems, but the trailing energy into the U.S. is kind of fading, and so you'll see kind of that high out of all those fronts, the high pressure is what wins, and that kind of enforces the cool air for a little while, but it also shows that it's not bringing any more. That next push of cold air isn't coming, and so you'll see as next week comes, I think our theme's going to be more warmth. I've heard a lot of people really excited about cold and the potential of it, but I think for the South, mostly it's going to be the story of reducing progression of each front. The next front only makes it kind of to Oklahoma, Illinois before wearing out, and then the one after that you can see up in the northwest, just the hints of it. It's going to come together, but it's also looks like it's not going to make it very far. And so I think the pattern for the next week or so is it's going to heat back up pretty quick. Little less moisture, so maybe it'll still feel a little better, but Oklahoma, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, places like that, it's fall. You'll get the warm side of fall again. Up north, it'll still be reasonably cool because there's systems are getting near enough each time that they kind of reinforce it. Not bitter cold, but kind of seasonal. But down here in the south, I think for at least the next week mainly, it's going to be after the next day or so, once this system kind of fades that we're talking about right now, it's going to warm back up, and the story's going to be warmth. And honestly, even beyond that, there's been a lot of talk. Cold's coming. I don't see any sweeping, progressive, sharp cold fronts sweeping across the country. Like, those are the ones you really trust. You really trust the predictability of, and they tend to come true. There are some hints. Maybe a cold front will kind of sneak in from the northeast, kind of backwards, and it's a weird pattern right now, and maybe that'll happen. But that's very contingent upon what happens in the Atlantic and what all the systems do exactly. So we'll see. There may still be some cool air, but the signs of just this sweeping, sharp, cold air that's going to change the pattern, you can kind of watch this first front and you go, oh, maybe there's more to come. Well, not right now, it doesn't look like. So we'll see. It's way down the road, and always big on saying, hey, let's not worry too much about that. There's nothing in big lights saying, here I come, deep cold air to start October. So I think we'll be talking, if anything, the story will again be, what happened to fall? It happens sometimes, but maybe by the time we get into mid-October, early to mid-October, we can get things a little going again. The other things to be talking about always this time of year is the tropics. The systems out there right now look pretty positive, pretty weak. They're all fading away. There is the next system, the next invest, kind of west of Africa. It's looking a little more like we want to watch it, because the models initially were all hinting that it would pass mainly north of the islands, north of the Caribbean islands, Puerto Rico, the Antilles, but starting to see it's nudging further south a bit. And so if it gets a bit further south, maybe it doesn't get picked up and go into the Atlantic. We'll see. I mean, I think it's still got like 50-50 or better odds. The models that develop it into something stronger usually take it up north, so it's still a week and a half away from being something we're paying a lot of attention to, pretty much. So even if it wants to come this way, it's not anything to be nervous about right now. Just, hey, put that in your memory bank. Maybe we'll talk about it again. Maybe a little Friday, maybe Monday, we'll start saying, hey, okay, this is something we should watch. But maybe not. It may well be not. And that's where, rather than like, oh, here's our next big system, we'll see. Nothing to nerve over yet. Hurricane season's not over, but it's been pretty positive. I mean, I was thinking, Florida, we've had a couple tropical storms. Elsa, I don't remember what the other one was, but really hasn't been that big of a deal for Florida in terms of impacts. And a lot of the country, North Carolina hasn't had a whole lot. I know that there are some areas, obviously Ida was really rough for Louisiana. I mean, can't emphasize enough that was one of the strongest systems to hit there in our lifetimes. Stronger than Katrina. Maybe didn't do as much catastrophic widespread, like the levees didn't fail in New Orleans, but it was still a bad system for a lot of people. And North Texas had Nicholas, that wasn't great, and then the Northeast kind of got hit by Ida, and then there was that storm before it, Henri. So they've had a bit of a bumpy time, but a lot of places, the Caribbean islands have been reasonable. A lot of places, I mean, I was seeing that it's basically this week's the anniversary of when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico 4 years ago. Hello, I'm falling down. Car's blowing me away. But nothing like that right now. I don't think, even this system, I don't think it's going to be anything like that for Puerto Rico if it even gets that far south. It really looks like it's going to be a little further north, but it's just, is it a lot further north or a little further north? If it's a little further north, maybe we pay more attention to it down the road on the eastern U.S., but it hasn't been that bad of a year. Not over yet, but take the positive. Everybody wants to talk about the negative. So that's the weather. Today is 3 months since my dad died. It's a tough time. It doesn't seem like things are getting better. Not so much with my dad, but just everything in life. It just keeps coming. The pain and the hits and the loneliness, and things look so positive in the past. And there's a lot of things reflecting in my heart today because it's the 3-month anniversary of that. It's also 6 years since my dad went in the hospital when we were in England, and it looked really bad. And I can remember God gave him more time then, so I praise that 5 more years that we had together. But it's the anniversary of a trip I made with some friends. It's a lot of tough things to reflect on. My phone is giving me issues. 1 second. So, looking today at Matthew 25. I opened it and it was just, or it opened and it was just like, yeah, there's a lot to say with this. So, hope you'll read it. First things first, I'd like to start kind of in the middle. Verse 14. This is Jesus talking it's kind of a chapter of parables about what really matters, and it really kind of stands out to me. He says, "For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained 2. But he that received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. And after a long time," and noticed the word long time there before. That's interesting. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained 5 more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. He also that received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Then he which received the 1 talent and came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast sown not, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. I noticed there, he didn't even go get it. He says, hey, it's over there. Kind of says you go get it. I mean, maybe he's saying I'll go get it. Just, hey, it's there. It's promise. It's secure. I don't have it for you, but it's secure. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant. Thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which has 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even which he hath. And cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. One thing that's kind of been a challenge recently is building. My whole life I've kind of understood that you want to build. I was thinking about a board game, many board games, it's true. The game we played that makes me think of it's called Settlers of Catan. You start the game by building places that then allow you to gather more resources so you can build more places. If you sit on what you have, hold your resources, you end up losing them. You don't even keep them. Nonetheless, advance. And it's the same with chess. If you're up by a small piece, you try to trade off to make that piece more of an imbalance, and then also you try to turn that one piece into a bigger piece or more pieces so that it just snowballs. It's one of the most fundamental things of science and of God is that things snowballs, things build up, things accumulate. Little becomes much by progress. It's like, I mean, he mentions usury in here. If you invest money when you're young, you will have a lot of money when you're old if you make it that far. Now, the Bible also warns about putting all your focus on what you're going to be and just believing in the future and not trusting God, just trusting your own abilities if that's where your money's at. But I've always lived that. I mean, I notice even in the darkest times, I was thinking back to 3.5 years ago, when I was just at the bottom. I still found myself, more than ever, I was inspired. I would, one of the things I always had passion to do was learn Spanish and get better at Spanish. And I remember when I was on a trip to England and my dad was sick, I spent all this time learning more Spanish. I've done it through the years. I love the language, and it's been really important to me. And so 2018, I would read, I would study vocabulary, I would try to learn the grammar, I would keep trying to build. It's building. It's like, what are you building for? But I always had a passion to build. Another thing I got passionate about then, I've always had a passion of, I was like, I want to build so I could be on Jeopardy someday. I'm decent at Jeopardy, but learn the things that I just don't know very well. Classical music and operas and literature in general in a lot of sense. Things like that just aren't my fields, aren't things that I know much of anything about. And so I'd watch every day on Jeopardy, see how I did, and I'd try to read about Greek history or Roman history, or I'd find myself doing that. And I've always had that building passion that I'd make more of what I had. But when I lost my dad, it's kind of, it challenges that. Because you directly see that there's an end to the building. It doesn't just keep accumulating. It all breaks eventually. All the things that I built with my dad, all the time that I served him so much in 2015, and we got more, and then he had a knee surgery in 2017, and we kept getting better, and we kept building more time for the future. But here it's 2021, and now it's all dead. It's all fallen apart. Everything that was built for my dad is over. There's no more building for that. Likewise, it kind of puts, it's heartache. I thought for a little while in my life, I learned Spanish, and I thought, wow, I'm going to use it for this. And now I kind of, every day I look and I'm like, I don't see myself getting to where I have conversations with it, and I don't see anymore where I'm using that in my life. And it's kind of, it depresses that. And the jeopardy, I'm not getting better. I see myself, that's it. With time, things deteriorate. I'm 39, and I just don't remember. I don't pick things up as easily anymore. I try to spend all this time reading and studying, and I just don't gain much more. And I see my ability on the questions they have now is like decreasing, because they're more asking new stuff, and I don't know that stuff. And so, like current event stuff, hip-hop music, and TV shows that are on like HBO and stuff, and there's a lot of depression that like you build, and is anything gonna come out of it? So if you have that feeling in your life, like, what are you working towards? I mean, that's the whole thing. I'm gonna make something, I'm gonna do something. Then what? I mean, my passion with this, I want to help people, and I want to, as much as anything, I want to build something so that if I had a family, if I had a life, there'd be something to root our lives into, something that would provide for us, something to make a difference while being a husband, a father. And you start to go, well, is that even going to happen? When you're in this time where it seems like you're more and more alone every day, and people have turned their back on you, and people have given up on you, and so it's like there's so much, what's the point? And it becomes so tangible when you lose something like your father. For 38 years, every year on Christmas, not 38 years, but for many years on Christmas, I would, late Christmas Eve, like into Christmas morning, I would sit down and pray after the rest of my family had gone to sleep, and thank God for each person in that house, and say, God, it's another year. You've kept my family. You've kept all the things that were most important to me. I'll never be able to do that again. So there is a real barrenness when a time like this comes. I've always loved the idea. I've always lived towards like potential. Somewhere along the way, potential runs out. I think that's partly why I haven't made more of myself, is I like potential sometimes more than I like reality. My favorite week of the football season is like week 14, 15, when there's like 20 teams that can make the playoffs and all these scenarios. Then when the playoffs come, it's the wild card they're battling over. Usually the playoffs come, all those teams that battled, there's one or two left that made the wild card, and then they lose the first week, and then it's all over. All that potential, all that interesting, all that excitement. I used to be a person who lived in fear of kind of choosing one thing. I so many times in my past where I didn't live it out, and lived nervous, lived afraid, didn't push forward when there was something special in my life, and it didn't happen. Now I'm in a point, I think I'm at a point in my life, I think I've proven that if I believe in something, if I love something, if I care about something, I'll be there for it, but it still hasn't mattered. Dad's still gone, but the friends that I invested my time in, they've just gone away. So it's heartbreaking, and a lot of it's just I'm being honest. Not sure I have a headline that, hey, this is what it is, but I see in this chapter, I mean, we got to keep producing, we got to keep moving, and I don't know, I'm a mix. At times I haven't wanted to work on the Spanish and Jeopardy, and another one that really has always been rough for me is God himself, the Word. Everybody says, put the Word in your heart and it'll be there when you need it, but I keep seeing where I store up the Word and then it kind of fades when I need it the most. That's always been tough for me, because the whole point is I can't build up to where I'm self-reliant. Not in any of those other things, but especially not in God. I can't have enough Word that I'm strong. It's not about building me up. I think the rest of Matthew 25 offers a little more insight, a little more kind of direction and hope on what the whole point of building is. That we got to realize it's not. I don't know which to do first, so it's not loading on here, but it doesn't matter. The first part of chapter 25 of Matthew is about the virgins and the bridegrooms coming, and some have prepared and some haven't. And a lot of what I see is, and it even says, you won't know the hour or the day or the hour when the Lord cometh, when the bridegroom cometh, when Jesus comes back, when your life is over, when this world is over, whichever one matters next to you will define your life, whether you're taken home as you die or whether you're taken home when the world ends. You won't know the time of it. And I mean, there's a big part of the message there. Why are we building? Because that's what we're building towards. We're building to be ready. We're building to have it when it comes. I know some of the things that I put passion into building in myself, they became important in ways I never imagined. And so I know we can't quit trying to build. We can't, I mean, okay, you take a step back. I have too. You just don't want to do it anymore. The amount I just don't want to do much of anything right now, that I'm lonely, that I'm broken. It's a ton, but what am I going to do? What joy is there in waiting? See, the whole point is, I wasn't prepared in the past when great things came into my life, because I sat, when I was sad, when things got broken, I just lived in that sorrow. I want to be ready. A few years ago, great things came into my life, and I wasn't the person I needed to be. I mean, you respond quickly, but you wish, man, I wish I had more to show when I needed it. I wish I had the things built up when I needed it. And so I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to try to be like those virgins, be like those women who, they don't know when the bridegroom's coming, but they're going to be ready. And I saw there, I think I mentioned it, in these talents, the owner of the house, the landowner, he was gone for a long time. How easy it is to just go, he's not coming back. All we can do is put our trust that God has a bigger plan than we do. And it is so hard right now. But the other part, so that's really important, and I'll mention that again in a second, I think. The other thing, at the end of chapter 25, starting in verse 31, it says, when the Son of Man cometh in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all the nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from his goats. And it goes on to say, the sheep, the people he puts the good things for, he says, you fed me, you clothed me, you were there for me. That's one of them. It's not just the thing, what you did, items you gave, but you came and visited me when I was sick or in prison. And he says, good job. And then to the other people, they say, what? I didn't see anything. You did it to the least of these. You did it to me. You did it. That was your heart. When it comes to it, God is about love, about loving other people. And I mean, there's some stark pushes there. Because when they say, there's some sharp messages. When they say, I didn't see it, he says, then shall he answer them, saying, verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to the least of these, ye did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous to life eternal. Man, you didn't live it out. That's kind of what the message has been in my life for a while, to do with other people, to do with myself. You gotta live it out. Words don't mean anything. You think these people, Lord, I love you. I love people. Your actions speak for you. You choose who you are. Don't let your word, we talk all the time about how words are dangerous. There's so much power in the tongue, power to start fires and power to damage many things. And ain't that the truth? But a lot of it is you can say things that you don't live, and so you're guilty of those words. You're held to account of those words. Those words show who you really are and what you really chose. Man, I've had so many friends tell me how much they care and how important I am to them and how close they are to me. I've had people call me like sons or like brothers or like fathers, and those words, we're held to account for our words. We say we love the poor. We say we wish things were better in this world. And then what do we spend our time doing? We spend our time soaking up our own joys. We put our passions on what we want in life. And I believe we're held to account for that. It's the difference between heaven and hell right there. And because the commandment is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You shall love the Lord God with all your heart, and you shall love the neighbor as yourself. So if you say you love God, if you've believed you've loved God, if you've believed in Jesus Christ, and then you just don't do that. You just, every day, what can I do for fun? What do I want today? You say things to people, and you're not there for them when you could be. Your fruits don't live it out. You should be looking at that and going, wow, I want to be that. I need to be that. I'm not doing it. What I think I am and what I am, they don't match up. Actions speak louder than words. And that's a lot of it too. Why am I building this? I want to be like the virgin. I want to be ready when the miracles come, and if a family comes my way, or if real lifelong best friends come my way, I want to be ready. Or when they come back. But also, we're called to make a difference to others, even when we're broken. That's kind of like when you hit this point. My life is a life of loneliness, and every time it seems like something's finally changed in it, I'm right back where I stand. And it's so easy at this point in life to just say, I give up, I'm done. But my heart screams out, what am I going to do in this time? I'll spend time on myself, I'll mourn, I'll have some pity, I'll eat the foods I feel like. There's always that kind of image of the broken-hearted woman eating the carton of ice cream. Like, you've heard that before. I'm not trying to say anything, but like, you indulge yourself maybe, but they don't do anything. They're dead, they're empty, they don't help. But for maybe a second, they help you forget, but you're still the same place. And so immediately my heart's just like, man, if I'm going to be broken, I'm at least going to bless somebody else. The bridegroom isn't here. I'm going to get ready anyways. The owner of the land left me this money. I'm afraid of him. What if he comes back and I lost it? What if I lose it? Well, you can sit on it. I noticed one thing. It says he gives them according to their abilities. And there's something in that to me that speaks like, this guy this landowner already knew he wasn't gonna, who he was, what he really cared about. He starts with little things, as it says throughout that chapter. It says, to whom he who is faithful with little things, much will be given. You will be master over many things. It starts with little things. And if you say, well, this isn't enough, to whom he who doesn't have, even that will be taken away. And you're given just a little bit, and I need to hold on to this, and it's mine, mine, mine. You'll lose it all. You're trying to hold on for you're going to lose everything. When you're bold, when you make the best of your situation, that's when you're given more situation. I feel like, and it's not always true, but I feel like there's evidence in there. If God has put you in a place where you're having big challenges, there's already some evidence. Him who he gave according to their abilities. If he's given you a bigger situation and it's just so bleak, after you had other blessed times where it was smaller, but you did your best in it, and you were righteous, and you cared, and you loved, and you looked out for what mattered, I think there's a hint in there that God is with you. Because he doesn't give the big things to the people who don't want to follow. Look, you can get in some pretty great places. God will let you into some special places sometimes that you aren't fit for, or shouldn't be in. Like, he'll let people who don't deserve it be there sometimes. I'm thinking of Judas, he was an apostle of Christ. I mean, he built himself into a huge spot, and he could look at himself and say, look at all the stuff I've did. But most of the time, the people facing the big challenges are already there because they've been faithful in the littler challenges. David, when his son was chasing after him to murder him, and when he was stuck in the desert, he'd already been faithful again and again with Saul. Moses, everything was bleak. He'd already been faithful to lead his people out of Egypt, to stand on God's truth. Paul, he's in jail. He's stones being cast at him. All kinds of ugly times. He'd already been faithful to follow God when God said to follow him. When he couldn't see him, he was blind, but he could see him, the vision of him. The person who was absolutely anti-Jesus when Jesus called, he said, I'm coming. You have to be, if you are in a tough situation, like I feel like I'm in, sort of, there's evidence there God hasn't given up, because he took you through those times in the past. He showed you who you are. Now you get to decide, what are you going to make of this? And I don't get it. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it. I just try to, like, God, I want to understand. I want to do it right. But when there's not a lot of answers, you just kind of have to give what you got and trust that God has a bigger plan. That he still has something special for you. That he still loves you. That he gave you this because you're his special person. That he is saying, well done, my good and faithful son. I will make you master over bigger things. I will put you into bigger places. So why do we keep going? Why do we keep building when it's bleak? Because nothing we build lasts. And I guess there's the long story of it. They gave water, they gave food. All those things they gave, they didn't last. They were temporary things. They visited the poor and the hurt and the weak. All those things Jesus says they did for the least of these. They weren't permanent things, but they were, because they were doing it. God was accounting of it. Those things they felt like had no lasting value were the difference between eternal joy and cast into utter darkness. If you don't see the way, if you don't see why, if you don't see how, all we can try to do is just keep doing our best, trying to do what's right, seeking repentance when you do what's wrong, trying to move to break the bonds, fight against the bonds that are in your life, call for the blood, seek the Lord, break the things that are holding you down and breaking you. And trust when it just doesn't seem possible to trust anymore, when everything's let you down, when you're 39 and nothing's really gone well, no one's around. You trust. You keep going. You prepare your candle. You prepare your situation. And you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not the maker of heaven and earth. I don't make the choices. God does. All we can do is trust that He's bigger. So I pray that you will pray for me, that I will keep having courage, that I will keep moving forward boldly on the things that I'm working on. There's a lot of things I'm working on and want to do, and I pray that I will have perseverance, because it's hard. I've always struggled with that, and I know I can think of like 15 years ago when things were great and then things fell apart. I couldn't keep going. So a lot of things fell apart. I didn't finish grad school. I didn't know what to do. I lost a lot of things. And, those times were real too. God is there when you don't got anything, when you don't have any more will to go on, when you don't have any more will, when you don't have any more passion, any more vision. He's with you then too. But pray that I will be stronger this time, that I'm working towards the things that really matter, that I will be courageous, that I will fight through when the mind tries to take it easy and give up, and that I'll keep seeking God, that He'll answer and He'll direct me when it's His time. It's tough for me. I've always, like I said, I like potential. The idea of old age always kind of unnerved me. My only hope was I'd been married young. I always pictured marrying young, and so my focus would be on my family, my wife, my children, my career, and I would kind of lose track of that. I mean, it would be worth it then, right? And I believe it would be. But we're coming to that day, and that's a lot of what depresses me with my dad, I think. We're coming to that day where all that we build in ourselves runs out. It dies away. There is decay in this world that's horrible. And we have to build just to hold on. I can exercise now. It doesn't mean I'm going to get strong and buff and fit. It just means maybe I'll level off instead of decaying as quickly as I would. And I don't know, to me that depresses me, because I'm looking always towards growing and making more. But what we do, I mean, this is the challenge of the rest of this life, because now it isn't this open life of potential. I could marry this person, that person, go do these great careers, be a professional sports star. Most of those potentials have gone away. It's me. It's this life. It's like the hurricane models. There's all these options, and now we're down to this, and this is what's happening. And it's always been a struggle for me. It's always been a struggle to get close to people, to God, when that is just the situation, when there's nothing more to look forward to. When my dad was in the hospital, I always try to give him something inspirational or something, try to find something interesting or fun to talk about. And he didn't enjoy any of those things, because he knew where he was. He knew the idea of building towards the future, it was gone. He didn't care what happened with the England soccer team years down the road. He was in the now. And that's always been hard for me. And that's maybe what's held me back with relationship with people. I don't know. But this is a challenging time where I have to be happy with what I'm given, what I have. And right now, at least, that's so little, so bleak. But God hasn't left. God is still my friend. God is still your friend. Maybe you won't be what you want it to be. Maybe your dreams won't come true. Maybe there's still some dreams left that will, but they're nowhere near right now. I know that feeling. I don't forget that so many people in the Word, they didn't get brought into the biggest places and do the greatest things until they were old. Joseph and Moses and even, I don't know about David, but a lot of people, until nothing was made of them until they were old. They didn't have the families. The families hadn't grown. I mean, Abraham and Sarah, they didn't have that child. But God made something of them after they thought there was nothing more that could be made. And so I'm not giving up on my dreams, my hopes. It's tough because I've already gone before God a few years ago, about 2 years ago. I finally just laid it down and said, look, God, these dreams aren't coming true. I give them to you. Do what you want with me. And then he said, no, look, here, I'm blessing you. You think now that you've given it up, that's when I want to bless you. When you think there's no hope, that's when he wants to bless you. What are you going to do? Are you going to give up? It's one thing to feel like, hey, the vision I see, it just can't happen. It's another thing to just say, well, I'm going to stop trying. I'm going to stop doing anything. I'm going to stop caring. I'm going to stop working to make something better. If you really want it, you have to go. You have to keep going when it's impossible. So pray for my strength, pray for my courage, pray to break this loneliness, because it's tough. I don't just want anybody in my life. I'm not looking to just go hang out with casual friends. I want people that want me, that want to be along for the journey, that really, that finally somebody would be as passionate about me as I am about them. And if you have anything you want me to pray for, I've been glad to pray for one or two of you this last couple days. I will personally message you back and pray for you. I believe when we agree together, God will hear you. Go to God, first of all, if you're hurting. But second of all, if you want a prayer of a friend, be glad to do it. Well, I've talked on and on as usual. Can't imagine how people could watch all of these, but doing what I can. I could do it in 5 minutes and it'd just be a Bible verse and that's it. Maybe a sentence of talk, but I don't know. Those thoughts aren't as organized and as quick as that for me. So maybe that's the message, to kind of be patient in life and do things at your own pace. I don't know. Praying for you guys. Praying for Cliff to get better, and Agapita to keep getting better. My friend Joanne, Krista. I don't know why I said Joanne. She's in the hospital again, so I'm praying for that. She's had a rough run recently, a rough run in a lot of life, but she is faithful. She keeps strong, and so thank you for the inspiration of those of you who keep fighting, who keep lasting, who keep enduring, who encourage me when it's not easy. And maybe you feel like you don't, I know the feeling, you feel like you don't have a lot to say, you feel like your words aren't going to help and that you don't know them that well, but when did I love you, Lord? When you went to visit me, when you gave me food, when you gave me water. It's the little things. That's the love that changes everything. So I encourage you today, be doers and not hearers. Love abundantly, love aggressively, don't give up. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Keep building. I love you guys. Thank you for your grace and your blessings and your friendship, for those of you who stuck around. And I pray tomorrow's better than today. Keep fighting the good fight.